Hey friends, have you ever heard the story of a weapon that was so brilliant almost no one understood it? A system created by Germany's best minds, capable of punching through armor like a tin can, yet it ended up as a technical curiosity, a museum piece? Today, we're diving into one of the most controversial and intriguing pages of the Second World War. We're not talking about tigers or panthers, but a small, fearsome gun with a strange name, the 2.8 centimeters heavy anti-tank rifle model 1941, the s.Pz.B.41. It was an engineering breakthrough that never found its place in the war. Why did that happen? What lessons can we learn from this story today? Stay until the end. This will be a detailed, deep, and emotional narrative, full of historical parallels and my personal reflections. And be sure to subscribe to the channel and write in the comments, what do you think? Can this gun be considered a failure or a genius ahead of its time? Imagine the spring of 1941, the Wehrmacht at the peak of its power. It seems the Blitzkrieg is invincible, but in the headquarters of German generals, a cold anxiety is already festering. Intelligence reports from the East speak of new Soviet tanks, the enigmatic T-34 and monstrous KVs, whose frontal armor, the standard 37mm door knockers, Pak 35-36, can't penetrate even point-blank. Panic, quiet but all-pervasive, begins to creep through the rear. An urgent solution is needed, and it appears in the form of a gun that looked like the brainchild of a mad scientist. This was not just a gun. It was a fundamentally different approach to ballistics. The barrel of the s.Pz.B.41 was not a usual tube. It was conical, tapering from the breech to the muzzle. The idea known as the Gerlich principle, after its inventor. How did it work? Imagine squeezing the stream from a hose with your fingers. The water shoots out with much greater speed. Roughly the same thing happened in this barrel. A steel subcaliber projectile, essentially a tungsten nail in an aluminum sabot, was accelerated by propellant gases in the wide section. When it entered the tapering cone, these gases, having no other exit, compressed around it with monstrous force, pushing it forward. The result, a mind-blowing muzzle velocity for that time and such a caliber, about 1,700 meters per second. This is almost twice as fast as most contemporary medium-caliber shells of that period. From a purely physical standpoint, it was a masterpiece. Armor penetration at a range of 100 meters reached 75 millimeters of homogeneous armor. This meant that at close range, this toy could take out a T-34 frontally and deal with the sides or rear of any tank of the era with ease. And all this in a compact package weighing just over 200 kilograms, serviced by 3 to 5 men. It seemed like the savior had arrived, a panacea for the tank threat. German engineering had outplayed everyone once again. But war is not a testing ground. War is mud, snow, shortages, wear and tear, panic, and harsh economic realities. And this is where the tragedy of the s.Pz.B.41 begins. Its brilliant characteristics were like a bright but short magnesium flash. The first and main problem, range. That fantastic penetration dropped sharply by 3 to 500 meters. Why? Because the lightweight subcaliber projectile quickly lost velocity due to air resistance. It was like a sprinter trying to run a marathon. A brilliant start, but no endurance for the distance. And on the Eastern Front, in the endless steppes of Ukraine and outside Moscow, battles were often fought at medium and long ranges. A T-34 could calmly, from a kilometer away, pick off the crew of this supergun without ever entering its lethal effective zone. The second problem, logistics and economics. The heart of the shell was a tungsten carbide core. Tungsten, strategic, super-scarce material. Hard, refractory, it was critically important for the machine tool industry, for the production of cutting tools. Spending it on disposable nails, which also quickly blunted against armor, was an unaffordable luxury for Germany, whose resources were already stretched thin. Every shot from the s.Pz.B.41 was not just a shot. It was a shot into the Reich's economy. The Germans, with their pragmatism, quickly realized this. Production of such ammunition was never mass, and their distribution was never a priority. The third problem, wear and complexity. The conical barrel wore out catastrophically quickly from the monstrous pressures and temperatures. Accuracy dropped after just a few hundred rounds. The ballistics themselves were so non-standard that they required specialized training for gunners' extra-range tables. In the conditions of total war, when younger and less trained soldiers were thrown to the front, this became a critical flaw. And onto this stage, already clouded by serious questions, comes an idea. What if we give this capricious genius gun mobility? What if we mount it on light armored vehicles, reconnaissance armored cars, and half-track armored personnel carriers, to create a fast, stealthy, and deadly hunter for close combat? Sounds logical? It does. But in practice, take, for example, the attempt to mount the s.Pz.B.41 on the light armored car S.Pz.B.41. This was already an outdated machine by 1942, with thin bulletproof armor, a weak engine, and a cramped turret. Picture this: a fragile platform, a long, protruding conical barrel. The powerful recoil after firing literally shook the entire structure, threatening to break something. The vehicle's balance was disrupted. This was not a hunter. This was an act of tactical desperation, an improvised field modification that only highlighted the desperate situation of German light units facing Soviet armor. The version on the half-track armored personnel carrier S.Pz.B.41 looked more serious. The vehicle was more mobile, more stable. To compensate for recoil, a long outrigger spar was designed, which dug into the ground. But failure awaited here too. In combat conditions, this spar often broke. To fire a shot, the crew had to stop, lower the outrigger, fire, raise the outrigger, losing precious seconds in a fleeting engagement. The APC, created to transport infantry, suddenly became target number one, with armor that couldn't even protect against heavy machine guns. Combat reports were scathing. I quote one verbatim: "Do not send us any more of these." The soldiers on the front line, in the mud and under fire, quickly separated the wheat from the chaff. Theoretical superpenetration at 100 meters was not worth their lives when an enemy tank or anti-tank gun opened fire from half a kilometer away. By 1943, the concept was finished. The war made its ruthless choice. The complex, expensive, and capricious engineering marvel was replaced by something simple as a crowbar and incredibly effective. The short-barreled 75mm gun, e.g., on the Pz.B.41, couldn't frontally penetrate an IS-2. But it could destroy a machine gun nest with one high-explosive shell, demolish a house occupied by snipers, knock out light vehicles. And most importantly, its ammunition was cheap, its logistics were established, and its crew didn't need a PhD. So what was the S.Pz.B.41? A failure? No. It was a victim of circumstances. A victim of a war that turned from a maneuver blitzkrieg into a total war of attrition. It was the swan song of German technical over-engineering, which ultimately shattered against the harsh realities of logistics, economics, and tactics. The story of this gun is a powerful lesson for all of us. Not just for military historians, but for anyone involved in innovation. It states, "The most perfect, most advanced product is doomed to fail if it is not integrated into the system. If its operation requires scarce resources, super-complex training, and ideal conditions. True genius lies not in creating something exceedingly complex, but in finding a simple, reliable, and mass-producible solution to a complex problem." The Germans understood this in 1943. The Soviet Union, by the way, understood this from the start, hence the T-34, genius in its simplicity and repairability. Today, looking at this strange conical gun in a museum, I have mixed feelings. Admiration for the ingenuity of the engineering thought, and sadness from the realization of its uselessness in the hell where it was sent. It was like a racehorse sent to do draft work in deep mud. Beautiful, powerful, but completely out of place. What do you think? Did the S.Pz.B.41 have any chance to change the course of events if it had appeared earlier and under different conditions? Or was its fate predetermined from the start? Write your opinion in the comments. Let's discuss. This is very important for the channel's growth. And if this deep dive hooked you, if you want to continue delving into such contradictory and non-obvious pages of history, be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this video with like-minded friends. Ahead of us are many more stories about brilliant failures and unexpected successes. Stay on the channel